All right, guys. So, what a wonderful show we just did with Janette Burgin, a regional mortgage banker. We talked about topics such as what it's like to be a self employed borrower when it comes time to buy a house, construction to perm loans. So, if you're thinking about building a house, this would be the episode you would want to watch. Physicians and dentist lending. Like, if you're a physician, again, this is a show you want to watch. We also talked about community stuff such as child help and care cuts and what they do in our community and how you could get involved. I hope you stick around and listen to it to its entirety. Share it with somebody that you know could benefit. All right, welcome to another episode of The Den. I am Eric Whitener, a broker owner of the Knox Fox Real Estate Group, and this is a show where we talk about everything as far as real estate related, what it's like to buy a house, sell a house, what's going on in the market, and things going on in our community. Really excited. One of the shows we're going to have coming up here soon is going to be the mayor of Farragut. So definitely want to check that one out. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But today we have a special guest, Janette Burgin. Janette is a mortgage banker that has been the past president of the Knoxville Mortgage Banker Association and has been in lending for 25 years in East Tennessee and throughout the South. In 2018, Janette was named the Knox Area Association of Realtors Affiliate of the Year. Twice, she was honored to be named the Affiliate of the Year by the Women's Council of Realtors. She has served on the executive leadership team for the American Heart Association and actively fundraised for the East Tennessee Autism Society. Janette continues to lead the board of Child Help Tennessee and serve on the leadership team for Care Cuts of Knoxville, serving Knoxville's homeless. In 2022, she was the first non-realtor to be awarded the Good Neighbor Award since its creation by the Knoxville Area Association of Realtors. That is impressive.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. One thing I like about doing the show is I feel like we already start off with a little bit of credibility because everybody we brought on the show has, number one, a ton of experience. And they're all very community driven, which are big factors.
When you love what you do and you love where you live and you take responsibility for where you live, there's no way you can be anything else.
I love it. I love it. You know, being in, you and I probably have both seen this. We're both in industries where people regularly get into it with this mindset of I'm gonna just get in and make big money and do their thing. What they don't understand is not only all the hard work, the amount of time it takes to build clientele, but also like there's like this responsibility to be in the community. It's not just about getting into making money. Like you give back on a regular basis, and I
A
know,
little bit.
yeah,
Well, I think it's funny because isn't it something like 10 years to become an instant overnight success?
yes, right.
It takes 10 years of training, 10 years of honing your skills, 10 years of excelling, 10 years of, late nights, all-nighters, whatever.
And then all of a sudden, boom, you're an overnight success.
And then you're an overnight success and everybody knows your name. Yeah, right. Okay.
Exactly.
It's that iceberg.
Well, I'm excited today about some of the topics we're going to cover because you being a mortgage banker offers some things differently than what I think the normal loan officer does.
Yes.
And that, I like talking about those different things because the consumer knows about the norm, the 30-year fixed, or a VA or an FHA. Like those are like normal.
And we have all that.
Yeah. But where there's opportunity sometimes is in these special programs that not everybody offers. And so, and not only that, but not only may not offer, but everybody can be more of a specialist in certain areas. So let's just kind of jump right into it. One of the things I want to talk about are like, you work with self-employed borrowers.
Yes.
A self-employed person, and while that's not necessarily special, but I think a self-employed person is like their loan qualifications are a little
Harder.
bit, they're harder.
They have to meet a higher standard because they themselves take on more and represent more risk. They're it.
They're it.
So when you lend to them, you're not just banking on a company, you're banking on a person that has said, I am an entrepreneur. And that means they're risk takers, and that's wonderful. And that's why we do it a little differently.
So what are some things that if I am self-employed, but as a self-employed person, what are some things that I should start to do to get prepared
Oh,
for
golly,
buying a
if
home?
I could say one thing, self employed person,
Yes.
there's a difference between saving money on taxes and prepping for lending.
Amen. Amen.
And so, honestly, it depends on how you file, it depends on how you're structured. But on a very simplified level, depletion, depreciation, and business mileage can be added back. So if you're doing a Schedule C,
Okay.
and I'm not a licensed CPA, I
Right.
just take what their work product is and run calculations off of it.
Right.
This is not tax advice.
Right. Fair.
You can take actual or you can take business mileage. Actual can't be added back. Business mileage can.
Gotcha. Okay.
Realtor.
Yeah.
Y'all drive a little bit,
Right.
just a touch. So what I often say is, I realize for taxation, actual oftentimes gets you further.
Right.
But depletion, depreciation, and business mileage are your friends on the Schedule C. And we do a cash flow analysis, so that lets us add money back.
And see, so kind of to your point in the beginning is, as a self-employed person, when it comes tax time, obviously I want to keep as much money as I can.
Amen.
But if I do it wrong, then I don't show enough income to potentially qualify for a home later.
It's so funny because I was doing analysis for a friend that we both know and love dearly, probably 2 decades ago. She was very successful. And there was a home that, anyway, she reported $17,000 in income
Yeah.
that was taxable. I gotcha. I understand. That's great. You have just saved a bunch of money on your taxation. But for 2 years, you need to play the game.
Right.
Because we're going to go back 2 years. And if you're in business 5 years or more, we have the ability to only use 1 year, your current year. So it just depends on, and it varies by qualifier, it varies by credit score, it varies by credit contribution, not just the number, but the actual analysis of each of the trade lines. What are they? How that all works. And there are just there's so many variables that play into that to help yourself if you know this is where you're wanting to go or you're wanting to prep. Just think depletion, depreciation, and business mileage.
Yeah. Talk to your, so if you're,
Consult your CPA.
consult your CPA, and I guess if you're considering, if you're, let's say, a young entrepreneur, then if you know in the next couple of years, and think at least 2 to 3 years ahead, that you want to potentially buy a house, it may not hurt to go ahead and at that point start having those conversations. Because I know that seems so early. Most people don't think about like 6 months and they're like, hey, I want to buy a house.
Right. I made a killing this month. Let's
Yeah.
go buy a house so I don't have to pay rent. Well, hello.
Yeah.
We have to be able to prove that you can do that over time, regardless of market, regardless of economic situation.
Right.
That you're consistent because, that 30-year mortgage or that 15-year mortgage is going to be there regardless of the market. So
Right.
we've got to be able to prove that in where you live in your market that you are an expert and that you can justify the risk.
So
We don't want to join you on the bath.
it would be fair to say that they're taxable income, the way they do their taxes, is probably the number one biggest hurdle in getting a self-employed person in a home.
You know, sometimes it's cash.
Sometimes, okay.
Because we don't, one of the great things we get to do and how we structure things is we can honor that self-employed borrower. If you own your company, and when I say own, I mean 100%. Or if it's you and your wife and you file jointly,
Right.
you both own 50. Well, you're filing jointly, that equals 100.
Right.
And if you're both 50% owner, whatever, as long as that's you. Some people don't pull the money out of their company so that they're not taxed.
Right.
Well, that makes sense, but they're their company. So then I can go in and pull those numbers in as well and those assets in as well. Because some self-employed people on paper, you wonder how they're eating.
Right.
Well, they've left it all in their company,
Yeah.
which is great. And they're structuring towards the savings on taxation. And that makes sense because they are their company. That is their money.
Yeah.
It's just which pot they're pulling it from.
Right.
So there's a couple of hurdles when you're self-employed, and I would say above all else, planning is everything. Planning. It is not a whim to buy real estate.
No.
You have to do it in advance, and the success is all about the preparation.
And knowing what I know about the loan process is one other thing that I could see happening to a self-employed person is issues with their bank accounts, as far as, random deposits and trying to source funds. So
It's
like,
fun.
yeah, having a game plan or understanding like you have
And
that.
don't be offended when we ask questions. We're not saying it's fraud. We're just saying, help me.
Right.
You know you more than I ever will. Tell me your story and
Right.
let me help you sculpt it appropriately towards your success.
I will say one thing that I did early on, because I already knew some of the hurdles, because I had done mortgages
done
for
lending.
for a short period of time, is I just opened a bank account and I put my down payment money in that bank account
And let it
and I
sit,
just
brother.
let it sit there. So that way I didn't have to source anything. I didn't have to show other bank accounts. I was like, just that's where the money's coming
We're
from.
going to want everything.
Yeah.
It's open kimono. We're taking a huge risk on you. You got to be straight with me.
Kimono.
It is. And it's very vulnerable. I mean, I just recently did it myself and I was like, oh. So I understand you're like, oh my golly, they are checking under the hood. Well, of course we are.
Right.
You said that's the only account I should. Now, I'd like to see more than that because it's called reserves. We're not going to
Yeah.
use every penny you've got.
Right.
And we shouldn't be. And you shouldn't be. But the more you've got that you don't need, the better off you are. Because that just speaks to the risk level. I have some people that are like, oh, well, they have 500 months of reserves on a 360-month mortgage. No problem.
Right.
They can pay cash for the house. They choose to use this as a tool, as they should.
They're leveraging their money.
As they should.
Yeah.
The ones that pay cash are often regret, which is why I always tell people, you got somebody paying cash, flip them my card because in 90 days they're going to want access to their money and I can help them do that.
Right, which makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is you want your money to make more than the interest you're paying. So if even at 7%, you can find some vehicle to make more than that in. Not to mention to have some
Liquidity.
Liquidity, exactly.
Access.
That's a big part of it.
You can't move. You can't make the moves you need to do as a self-employed or even as a W-2 or a retired person if every dime you've got, you're sleeping in it.
Right.
Because getting access to it again when you need it is too late.
It's huge.
Oftentimes.
I heard somebody told me not too long ago, they said, speaking to that, it's like HELOCs. They said, hey, if you're considering a HELOC, you should go ahead and have it. That way
We
it's in
do.
place.
I do a ton of those, and I do them, and people may never use them, and I don't care. You know what? You buy insurance hoping you'll never use it. It's the
Right.
same premise. And since ours, can be no closing costs. There's no reason not to have it sitting out there. It takes one major emergency, one tree in your house.
Yeah.
My family had in 2011, we got to lead the area in expenses on the hailstorm in Knoxville. So our insurance person was very excited and proud of us. But we got to we had to be at a hotel for 4.5 months.
Yeah.
Well, there's 3 of us. So we're talking a suite. One of us, it has to be handicapped accessible because my mother is handicapped. Welcome to 14.5 a month. How many months can you cash flow that plus repairs?
Right. Right.
And that's what we paid. It's the same thing as a home equity line of credit. Better to have it sitting out there and not need it than to need it and not have access and be 30 to 45 days away from it.
And for people who are listening that don't really know, a home equity line of credit, commonly called a HELOC, is exactly what it sounds like. They're taking, if you have enough equity in your home, you basically can have almost like a checking account,
Yes.
where you can access that equity, and pay it back over time. You can pay it back in a lump sum. You can pay it back
You
over
use
time.
it, you pay it back, you use it, you pay it back. You don't
Yeah.
have to requalify every time you need something, unlike a regular loan design, a fixed end loan. And there's also, some people are nervous about home equity lines of credit because of just like they're nervous about adjustable rate mortgages. The issue with that is the unknown. We also can provide you with a second position home equity loan. If you need a fixed rate to sleep at night, it's possible.
Which I'm hearing more and more talk there. A lot of consumers out there have, maybe they've used up because things have gotten more expensive.
Some people are living on them. That's how they're making it,
Yeah,
connecting the dots.
so if you've run up credit cards and you've run up certain debts that now you're like, hey, this is a strain on my financial situation. You can use it, and if you've owned a home, let's just say you've owned a home since before 2020, you most likely have a ton of equity that you could tap into.
Possibly. It
and-
is a higher risk level because it's second position, lien position, so you have to meet a more strict standard. But it's still very doable.
And
Happy to talk people through it.
and that's why the suggestion came up to just have it, because if you already have that, especially when things are good, it's kind of hard to go out and apply for something when things aren't good.
You can't get a HELOC when there's a tree in your house.
Yeah.
When the tree has fallen, you're done. But you can the day before.
Yeah. So yeah. So we just covered two topics right there. I'll back up just real quick
Yes,
for a
sir.
second. If you're a self-employed person and you're thinking about buying a house, just go ahead and get with a lender such as Janette to have that conversation as early as possible, because she'd be happy to sit down and look at where you're at and help point you in the right direction.
Eric, I was so blessed the other day. I got a call from a gentleman and he goes, "You don't remember me." And I wanted to say, "You're right." But I was just like, "Okay, how can I help you?" And he said, "I need to meet with you in person." I was like, "Okay, nobody wants to do that anymore. Everybody's busy." So he comes in and out of his pocket, he takes this piece of paper, and where it was folded, there were holes where it had dry rotted up the piece of paper. And he said, and he unfolds it and he goes, 17 years ago, you met with me and we created a plan, and now I've now finished it. I'm ready to buy a house.
Oh my goodness.
I said, "I don't care what you need. We're buying a house.
Right.
I'm going to make this happen. You worked 17 years and you kept a piece of paper." I mean, some people can't keep a relationship that long, And so I was like, "Okay, buddy, we're buying a house. Let's do it." And he had, bless his heart, once I saw it and saw what I had written, I remember the situation he was in. He was going through a divorce. He was losing everything. I mean, he was one day away from sleeping in his car kind of thing.
Yeah.
And here he is, put his credit back together.
He did the work.
He did the work. And there's grace in time. People that think I can't possibly, Well, you might not be able today, but if you do the work, you can tomorrow. And I'm happy to hold hands and walk with you. For people that want to do the work, any of my colleagues throughout our industry will help you.
Yeah, I will say I have experienced as I if you've never experienced hard times, just hold on.
Exactly. It's not an if, it's a win.
It's a win. So I've already been there, done that. And I will say again, taking what I knew, I basically I followed my plan, and
You probably got there faster than 17 years,
oh
though.
yes, yes,
Congratulations.
considerably. But the point is it was so it's no different than any other plan or goal. Like you have to have a
And one thing you've got to know above all else is that we work with hundreds and thousands of people. I won't remember tomorrow what happened yesterday in the detail. This is a judgment-free zone.
yeah.
These are just numbers. They are not an indictment. They are not judgment. You're not a bad person. Good things happen to bad people.
Oh yeah.
Bad things happen to good people. And we learned that as a country in '08.
Oh yeah.
You know, prior to '08, I was in lending, and I can't tell you how many of my colleagues would say, credit score is character. Character is a judgment on your character. You know what? No, it's not.
No.
Credit score is simply a snapshot in time, and where you are today does not dictate where you're going to be tomorrow.
I look at it.
There's
Like
grace in all of this.
they're 100%. I look at credit score now kind of like a game. Once you know what levers to pull to do, and once you have like, okay, this is what they want to see, this is what we'll do, and so yeah, over
And there's
time,
more, just know beyond a shadow of a doubt, money forgives sin. So if this is the US of A, so if you have a problem, save your money. Save your money. Don't just show a difference
yeah,
of behavior. Money forgives sin. Reserves, it shows a change in behavior.
yeah.
Savings, all of that can happen to help.
That-
There's grace in the system. Everybody calls it, it's so judgmental. No. There's a lot of grace, and you can pivot a little bit. Now, it doesn't mean it's tomorrow. Doesn't mean it's the next day. You may have to wait a year or two. You may have to wait 4 years if you fell down. 7 years. It depends on what's happened and
Right.
how you've put yourself back together. It's not that you fell down. It's did you get up, and how did you do it?
Right. And I think that's where again having the conversations, being able to sit down and say, hey, this is my goal. This is where I'm at. And it is a moment where you just need to be open. Like there is no sense in hiding anything because trust me, when it comes time to actually like do the loan, they're gonna pretty much they're gonna look under the hood. So you just line everything up, and it does. Sometimes it's a function of time.
Sometimes it is,
You
yeah.
file bankruptcy, you're waiting 2 years. Typically, right? But you'd be surprised what you can do with your credit in those 2 years. That when in money you could save, and then turn around and be able to buy a house after that period is up. There's all these different things. Things drop off your credit. Things like you just got to know what to do, and that takes talking to somebody. But the most important thing I think, and this is what catches a lot of people, is we live in pride for sure. Pride for sure. The other is we live in a society where we want instant gratification, and this stuff isn't instant. It takes time.
There's no microwave in credit.
No.
There's no microwave in lending.
So-
and you can't borrow yourself out of debt.
You cannot.
And so many people try. And you just have to
That
pay it off.
on that note, we were talking about HELOCs. The HELOC isn't necessarily somebody might say, well, hey, a HELOC would be you borrowing yourself out of debt, but not really.
It's not designed to be a long-term solution. It is for temporary need.
Right.
Short term. Pay it off.
In some people, like you have to look at the math equation, math it all out. Like if I've got credit card debt at 22, 23% interest, but I have the ability to either get a second or a HELOC or a refi. And at the end of the day, I'm dropping that interest rate, down to let's just call it 10 or below. I'm I'm saving money that I can either pay that debt off quicker or, at least give myself some breathing room so that I don't keep using more.
Digging the hole deeper.
Yes, yeah. So okay, so one thing I
Let's
want.
talk about something happy.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, on that note, there's a lot of people that move here to East Tennessee and they want to buy land and they want to build a house.
Okay.
Um, there are
They're some of my favorite people.
so they want to buy land and build a house. So you have a product called a construction to perm loan. Tell me a little bit about that. How's that different? Biggest part.
So
How's that
just
different?
know construction is lending on blue sky. And so the requirements are different. It's a lot less expensive and a lot easier to buy an existing home. Even if it's new construction, it exists.
Right.
Construction lending is about blue sky lending. There's nothing there. And we're working off of a drawing and praying you had an artist and not a stick figure specialist.
Right.
So it's an organic process. A lot of things move and change, and it can be complicated. They're some of my favorite loans to do, just because I like that level of complexity, and it's solving a puzzle. So just know that you're building something, and we're lending off something that doesn't exist. So we're going to assess its anticipated future value plus the current value of the dirt that you've picked out. So some people do 2-time construction closes where you can buy the land and close on the land. Then you get a construction loan and close on the construction loan. Then you build the house, and when it's done, then you have to go get a mortgage. How many closings is that? That would be 3. So nobody works for free. Nobody records deeds for free. And your friend and mine, Uncle Sam, is going to tax every single transaction. Those closing costs can build.
Yeah.
They compile. They
add up.
They add up. So a construction perm loan is a different design. We can buy the land, build the house, and write the permanent mortgage all in one set of closings. Takes a touch longer on the developing the loan side. It may take 15 days longer. Okay, so what? You've just saved in some cases $30,000-$45,000 between eliminating the other 2 closings. A lot of people like to buy the land, stick it in their pocket, and wait, because figuring out what you want to put on that is not a quick process, and it shouldn't be. If you're going to an architect, it can take 6 months to get your plans drawn with your wish list. Then you do the revisions. Then you cost it out with your builders. And, always check with more than one and get the pricing. And sadly, what you're going to find is they all cost about the same. And then you have to do surgery on yourself and go back to the drawing board and revise, because most people, I always tell them, your first pass, build your dream home. See what it costs.
Right.
You never know. You may have a little dream. Most people Pinterest themselves to death. Others save money sometimes by getting their plans offline and then tweaking those. So it just depends on how customized you need it to be. And then that can be a 6-month process, a 3-month process. I've seen people take 3 years.
Yeah.
And so if you've got your plans, if you've done the surgery and the homework on yourself, if you've got it to where this is what I want, then you have the luxury of moving quickly. And that's when we can step in and do, maybe the construction and perm all in one. If you've bought the land and just let it sit there and you're just sitting there while you're figuring out what it's going to look like.
So when
But you're in control.
you're in
We
control,
jump when you're ready, but you got to be ready for us to jump because
so,
we can't lend on something that we're not sure what it's going to be at the end. The catch is you got to build what you tell me you're going to build.
oh yeah,
So we're going to inspect, and then at the end, we're going to do a final inspection, and it's got to match what you told me you were going to build.
right,
So you can't start out with a 2-story and end up with a basement rancher and think that, oh, no problem. Big problem.
right.
Big problem. And so since the loan closes up front, there are no change orders. Change orders are called cash. Builders love working with this design because change orders drive them crazy, they're expensive, and everybody ends up upset.
Yeah.
So do all that planning on the front end. Know what you're doing. And then get off of Pinterest.
Get off. Yeah, right. Well, so
Quit shopping
yeah, the
and HGTV.
I will say so. I have now built 2 spec homes, which is different than building your
Very.
house. But even in the decision-making process of those things, I mean, I live in a home that was new construction, and we only had to pick out, some fixtures, what do we want to hang our towels on?
Fixtures and finishes.
Yeah, right. And even that was more than what I wanted to really take on.
Wait till you are having to decide where every outlet is going.
Oh, wait, yes.
Every switch plate, where the lights are going for furniture you haven't bought yet.
And the thing is, you have to. I think what people get into this process is it's their dream home, which they assume is perfect. And the fact of the matter is, and I've witnessed this a million times, is no home is perfect, even if you build
Amen.
it. So you almost have to be okay with a little bit of, well, it didn't quite work that way. And so big
Be
picture.
gracious with yourself because your dream home is never your last home. That's what I've learned. People build their dream home and then they're like, whoa, we got to do this again because we missed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have seen that as well. I actually at one point helped a fella years ago. He was building a house, and I worked with him some on it. And like even in the process, he's like, "Well, that's not what it kind of looked like in the plan." But because blueprints are different than reality.
You got to have an architect and a builder that work well together. You don't just take a plan to a random architect, or you don't just take a random plan from an architect to any and every builder. Not all builders can work with those drawings because not all drawings are designed for the build.
Right. So
There's got to be a partnership there.
does the builder have to be that builds the house that you guys are lending on? Do they have to be approved?
Yes.
They have to be approved. Okay.
Yes.
So another thing to get with your lender about, picking the right
Right.
builder that makes
Well, we'll work with anybody until they fall down and mismanage.
yeah. Gotcha.
So, and we don't want you to be their last stop out of town. How's that put? So, our goal is to try as much as you can to anticipate issues. So, we're going to look at credit. We're going to look at their relationship with their vendors. Are they on COD?
Right.
Have they not paid their bills? Do they only have one supplier? What COVID taught us is if they only have one relationship, is that if that relationship can't get a PEX joint, your plumbing never gets finished.
Yeah.
So we need them to have a couple of they need to have multiple relationships to have access to keep your project going and not have it choked off by a third party.
So that'd almost be worth the process right there, just to have somebody else lay eyes on the contractor you're considering going with, just to make
The
sure.
customer never sees the builder's information, but we do
You guys.
thousands of builds all over the country. We have a database.
Yeah.
And so if we haven't worked with them, we'll do the initial review. And while we would never tell you anything that we saw, we may have to call and say, next,
Right.
and we'll never tell you why.
Fair. Fair. That's
out of respect for the builder.
but that could be a
Who's your next choice? Because that one's not working.
yeah.
And they say why, and I say it's none of your business. It to protect the builder. It's none of your business. I'm just telling you, they can't play.
They can't play. Which at the same time, if you're the person wanting to build the home like that,
That's a safety net.
yeah, right. So
Because everybody goes, oh, they're a good builder. We've looked at 2 of their houses and people like them. Wow, you're going to bet $1 million on 2 people liking them? How do you prove they even built the home you walk through? And nobody thinks about that.
yeah, and I will tell
He's a
you,
good guy. We like him. There are a lot of great people, especially those that are in sales
Yeah.
and marketing. Doesn't mean that they know what a right angle is.
so or I will tell you based on the two builds that we had, and this is so. I mean, this is important to me in a lot of different ways. But when you're building something and you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in it, communication
Huge.
is. I mean, we live in a day where
You can't build a house by text.
but at least respond to the text.
There's
You
that.
know?
There's that.
like that. You want to make sure, and that would probably
And
be
I
one of
will
my
say
first
to
questions.
this, a good builder may not respond immediately because if they're worth their salt and the sun is shining, they're out
Doing something.
overseeing jobs.
Right.
They're building. But you might get a response at night. Well, the sun's set. They've gone home.
Right.
Or you might get a response on the weekends. That's okay.
Well, and that's how it is. I think with any busy self-employed person is you can't always expect a immediate response, but
You don't want the person sitting by the telephone
right.
at
You want
any
them doing
point
the
in
job.
this juncture. You don't want the lender that's sitting by the telephone hoping somebody will call and employ them today. You don't want the realtor sitting by the telephone hoping that somebody will walk in, and you don't want the builder that is 100% engrossed in your project.
Right.
Because
right.
that means they have nothing else going on. And while it makes you feel important, you're not getting top quality and you're not getting the benefit of experience because they have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
It's scary,
It,
and it's your biggest investment.
just know though, if they don't call you back after like 2 weeks, you have a problem. Um,
Or they may be on vacation, or I text one of the builders I work with, and I said, "Have you died, or are you mad at me?" And he said, "Janette, I almost died. I had COVID, and it went on for 4 weeks, and I wanted to die, and then I began to come out of it, and I still wanted to die, and couldn't sit up." So things happen. Good things happen. Bad things happen. It's not all about you, and it's not because they don't want to talk to you,
right.
especially if the people that have referred you said, that's not the experience I had.
Right.
So believe them. You may be waiting on the best one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's only so much you can do in a day, and sometimes life happens. Another builder, I texted him and I was like, "How are you doing? I haven't heard from you in 3 weeks." He said, "Yeah, at the ripe old age of 40, I had to have a hip replacement, and I have been in PT and could not. It's horrible,
Yeah.
and it didn't go well, and we've had 2 revisions." Okay, that makes sense to me, but I've got a 6 or a 10-year experience with this person.
Yeah.
If you don't know what their normal is, sometimes
I just know when you're doing you're doing this for the first time, and you know
it's hard.
It's hard. The
It's
builder.
it's a full-time job,
Yeah.
and you've got to know that it's not. It's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Be prepared. It's organic. You've got to sculpt it.
So when people make the decision they say, "Hey, I'm moving to Tennessee. I want to build my dream home."
Great.
I'll be honest with you. After hearing this, they may not want to.
That's okay. I'm going to tell them the same thing in person.
But
You got to know up front.
it's not an easy deal.
No, but it's worth it.
It is.
If you know yourself. But you got to know what you like too. Some people don't know themselves.
So kind of circling back around though, you guys offer basically you offer a product that you can help somebody minimize the number of closings that they have to go through, which I would say at the same time probably alleviates some additional stress. And not to mention
A little bit.
a little bit, and not to mention saves them some money, which when you're building a house, you're probably spending more money than you expected anyways. So
Promise you will.
anywhere where you can save money, you want to. So that's an awesome opportunity. I mean, yeah, someday I would say Terry, Joe, and I would want to build a place of our own. Um, and now we have some experience. We kind of know what to expect. But I think those options make it better. Not to mention, you just mentioned your relationship with builders. Like you kind of know what to expect or what the process is, so you can kind of guide them through. Hey, maybe here are some people you might want to talk to.
Well, we never say this is our preferred list because we don't
Right.
have a preferred
Preferred
list.
list.
But what we've got is a blacklist.
Fair, fair.
So when that name comes up, I say thank you. I'm sure there are others that would like to participate in this, but I cannot
Well, and
due to the experience we've had.
I can tell you, I know what it's like to work with a bad builder. I
Yes,
have
you
done
do.
that. I have done that.
Yes.
Um,
And he's very personable,
Very personable.
and you like him, and he's a good guy.
Yes.
All evidence to the contrary.
And I would never. Yeah. I,
And he probably showed you properties
oh yeah.
that you were like, well, this is good. And these people said they had a great experience
No, but well,
or they liked him.
and I'll be honest with you. Bottom line, that the house. I mean, that house did get built. The house did get sold. It actually was the finished product was nice. I will tell you, the whole experience from beginning to end was an absolute freaking nightmare. And it cost way more than what it was supposed to.
Our goal is to project that up front,
And
and that way you know whether or not you can do
yeah,
this.
it was
You know, the Bible tells us count the costs up front. You can only do as much as you can, but you have to seek wisdom and guidance, because if you are not sure, you've got to find somebody that is and let them look at it.
right. Which I think, so far we're like 3 or 4 topics in, and I think the so far the theme has been, if you're planning to do something along these routes, getting with a mortgage professional early and having the discussion.
Absolutely.
I say that about real estate all the time. I'm in my networking group. I tell them, the best time to refer me is the moment they think about it.
Consultations in our industry, the one that we share, are often worth what you pay for them, which is zero.
Right.
So look for experience.
It,
Look for experience. And when I say experience, how many houses have you built? How many times have you done this process? Not just, yes, I've been lending for 25 years, but have I ever built a commercial property? That would be a no. So I would not be a good commercial lender for you for construction. How many residential? A bunch. I can walk you through it. I know our process and I know the build process. Now, do you want me swinging a hammer? Not if you want the nail in the board.
right.
Each person, each industry has a segment of that process that they need to be experts in.
Exactly.
I don't tell the builder what to do. The builder doesn't tell me what to do. The appraiser has to be an expert at construction. Not everybody can look at a set of plans and read them.
Yeah.
And not everybody can look at a piece of dirt and know what it's going to be valued at. It's all about experience. It's all about doing it. Unfortunately, you can't go to college and study this.
Right.
You have to, it is through postgraduate work that you learn these things. And you don't want someone learning on your new home.
No. That is a mistake I see people
All the
make
time.
all too often. Yeah, especially when you may run into it in the lending world, because, like I said, people jump into that kind of like they do real estate sales. But I know we see it all the time, and it's like, I think I'm just gonna, my Aunt Susie got her license. I think I'm gonna use her, and that's great. I know that feels good. But you're talking about like one of the biggest purchases or sales you're gonna make, and you know, we've sold
You need to be in business 5 to 10 years.
well, and we've sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes.
Mm-hmm.
We've helped everybody from short sales to working multi multiple offers of 10 plus at the same time to very just
And having the resources to manage that
it all
is
plays into it.
not. Aunt Susie doesn't have that.
She doesn't, and I'm not trying to call Aunt Susie out and try to make
No,
Aunt Susie feel bad. Like someday Aunt Susie will have that experience.
if she stays with it, because it's not about the years in the industry, it's about the participation. How many times have you done this?
I will.
Some people are in it 10 years and they've done 20 deals. Well, let me help you. They've had to relearn everything every time.
I will say that nothing drives me more bonkers than when an agent says, "Well, I've been doing this for 26 years." I go, "Yeah, but you only sold 3 houses last year. Like you don't even
Right.
know what the market is."
Right.
So it's your time of service while great,
It
it's
should
not the
only be
full.
one thing,
Yeah,
one part of your decision, not the entirety of your decision.
I would say so. I would say when especially with such a changing market, you want somebody who's handling transactions. I think a fair question to ask a real estate agent is, what are the last 3 or 4 homes that you have sold? What were those like? What were the last buyers that you worked with? What were those like?
What is your typical buyer?
Right.
Who do you normally serve? And they're going to say, I'm licensed to go all over Tennessee and I can work with anybody. There's a difference between what you're licensed to do and what you're skilled at.
Right.
Dig until you know what they're skilled at.
I 100% agree. All right, so moving on down the list here because we got some other things. You mentioned that you offer something called, this is a big word, cross-collateralization.
Cross-collateralization. Cross-collateralization is where we use one loan to wrap multiple properties together and slide the equity over for the purchase. So sometimes you can, if you qualify, and not everybody does, it's a niche. If you qualify, then you may be able to enter into that purchase with a reduced cash injection. But what a lot of people use it for, and this helps a lot of people, is it lets you put in an offer on a home without it being contingent on the sale of your current home, because we're going to put the current home and the new home together
Okay.
in a single loan and close on the purchase, and then that lien wraps those two homes together or those two properties together.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can wrap investments, you can wrap second homes, you can wrap primaries. It just has to be a home.
Okay.
And depending on the equity and the purpose that exists in that property, it tells us how much of that equity we can ascribe to the new transaction. So these a million years ago used to be called bridge loans.
That's what it sounded like to me. Okay.
It is, but it's different. A bridge typically is a 90-day loan, and if you haven't sold your home, the note's called. Hello, that's a hammer, and it forces you to do something. It forces you to take something that maybe isn't to your best advantage. Ours are 30-year terms with oftentimes 5, 7, or 10-year fixed.
Right.
So you have 5 years to decide what you're going to do.
Okay.
You got 10 years to decide what you're going to do.
You don't have to necessarily sell that other property.
No, maybe you're converting it to an investment property. Maybe you want to keep it and make it a rental. It lets you use it and so it's one loan. And then if you choose to sell, which you can,
Right.
the current home and have the other and keep the other, what we do is what's called a partial release of lien, so that when you go to close it, now we need advance notice.
Right.
As long as the new house equity allows to carry the balance, we're going to hold you at an 80% max. 70% if it's investment property that you're buying. But whatever you get out of this loan, you can keep above the 80% mark
Gotcha.
on the new house. So we release the lien and you can sell it. Some people are like, oh, but you take all my money. No, you can take that money above 80% and reinvest it. There's plenty of money to pay your realtor if you decide to sell.
Right.
It doesn't, because we don't go after 100%. We're never going to leave you with zero equity in either property.
So somebody.
So it takes away all the negativity of a bridge. And the other thing that you got to know is we can do multiple states.
Well, that's okay. So that was kind of where I was going, because if you're relocating,
Praise God.
yeah.
Welcome to East Tennessee.
yeah, you're relocating. I mean, that's one of the hard parts about it is, well, I need to sell this house, move here, and buy a house. In this scenario, you can actually do that. They don't. That gives them breathing room.
If they qualify, yes. Yes, if they qualify. And not everybody will. And if they don't, then they have to sell first. But this is an option to not sell before you buy and still be able to use the money in that structure. And where we see this really, really helpful is a lot of older people who have, paid off their mortgage. They're sitting in a zero debt position.
Which is a lot of people. There's a lot of people.
Yes.
There.
Young people, older people, I mean, it doesn't matter your age. It's that they have a very little or no debt
Right.
on their home. That lets them use it and not have to pack and go through the showing process. The showing process is very intrusive. If you've got animals,
Right.
if you aren't of great health and can't leave on a dime and it's hard for you to do, if you got kids, dear God, every child comes with 2,000 square feet of mess.
Yeah.
And so it lets you buy that house, move into it, and then decide what you're doing with your current home, or then put it on the market and show it once it's perfected.
So one of the cool parts about that is it takes a lot of the it takes a lot of the stress off.
That's the whole purpose.
A lot of that time. So in theory, you could buy right on the purchase
Yes.
without stress, because let's just say you put your house up for sale, got it under contract. Now your purchase side, you're maybe feeling rushed because you
Right.
you don't want to be homeless.
Right?
On the flip side, when you buy with a contingency of selling, sometimes because that seller's taking a little bit of a risk, you're
'Cause
not
they're-
going to maybe get the deal that you could
Right.
have without that contingency.
Right.
So now you're in a scenario where you can buy right, you can literally make the move, and then do what you need to do to sell right.
Yes.
Maybe the house needs a little paint, maybe it needs a little carpet, maybe it shows better without all your stuff in it.
Or your kids or your
Kids,
pets.
yeah. And so I can see how that could be very, very beneficial.
Makes a huge difference.
Whether you're moving cross town or cross states, that's a pretty cool option. And it does sound it. So when you were talking about it, it did 100% to me sounded like a bridge loan. I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize a bridge loan had a balloon date.
Well, they used to. A lot of them only came with a balloon, and we do no balloons. I don't write balloons.
And a balloon is in anything when in mortgages, when they mention a balloon, it's when whatever the remaining balance is becomes due at a certain point.
So you have a deadline. You have a hammer on your head.
You either pay it or you refinance it or you do something,
Or
like
it's
somehow
foreclosed
that
upon.
that loan is getting paid one way or the other. Okay. That's it. That's pretty awesome. I'm gonna have to.
It is pretty awesome. It's not for everybody, and please hear that. But for the people that can do it, that qualify, it's like a pressure cooker. The valve is released and everybody exhales, and then you're in control. And you don't feel like you're a victim, or you don't feel like you're out of control and all these other factors are messing with your family. You can pace it the way your family, your life works, and you're not in a hurry, which I think is the biggest feeling that a lot of people they feel pushed. And my whole goal is for them not to feel
Well,
pushed.
it's a Yeah, I would say the last couple of years, especially with the way the market was moving, everybody kind of felt like this was like I have to do it now. I have to make this offer. I have to like I don't have options. Market is shifting a little bit more. We're seeing more inventory, so
Mm-hmm.
which is a good thing. Um, which gives people more options, maybe gives them a little bit more time. I mean, there's nothing like we've also have y'all seen you've seen the video, the guy like runs through the house showing it. He's like, I'm a
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They're like basically like, oh, we got our showing, we got 30 seconds, we gotta go, okay, make
Well,
an offer.
people were booking
That
15-minute showings. You're
that
supposed to wager $800,000 on 15 minutes,
yeah, that
and
was
you only get in once. What?
that was crazy.
I'm
Not
so glad we're past that.
not fun at all. So yeah, in interesting times, I know a lot of people financially at today's prices and today's rates, maybe they feel priced out of the market.
Hmm.
But at the same time, interestingly enough, as this carries on, the market is improving for things like being able to maybe get favorable terms on a purchase.
I'm
Um,
seeing closing costs, seller paid closing costs coming
yeah,
in on contracts.
taking a contingency offer, on having a home to
Some.
sell. Those these things are starting to come back in, and probably one of the best things is it gives you a minute. Like you don't have to make that decision in the living room.
Right.
Um, I'm not saying I will always put this disclaimer: if it's a cream puff, if it's a home that is absolutely in the great condition, great price,
Checks all the boxes.
that you're not the only one looking at it.
Sit
So
down at their kitchen
table,
table, write the contract, and block the next people from coming
yeah,
in.
just know that cream puffs, even in the slowest of markets, still sell quick. Um, so okay, so awesome. That's a really cool. I'll be honest with you. I learned something. I appreciate that. Um,
Thank you.
I, this is class with Eric. Um, so now let's talk about. Okay, so this is a little more industry specific.
Sure.
Physicians and dentist lending.
Hmm.
So let's let's explore that a little bit. Now I know we're don't tune out if you're not a physician or a dentist because you probably know a physician or dentist, and they may not know these products are there. So this is your opportunity
To help
to
somebody.
help somebody, or be the guy who can say, hey, I know a person.
Right.
So what exactly is physicians and dentist lending? Why is that special, or how's it different?
They're broke. Bless their hearts. They have incredible earning potential, but they have just gone through a meat grinder to get their degree, to get their right to work. Think about it. Their right to work. And we want them to be highly skilled and highly educated. So you don't want somebody that didn't go through that process
Right.
to be treating your person.
Mm-hmm.
But because they have made that level of sacrifice, they've taken on a lot of delayed gratification. And they may be 32, 35 years old, buying their first house with no money because they've just been through the ringer. Maybe they've done a specialty. Maybe they've definitely done residency. They may have gone for additional, surgery specialty, or a sleep specialty, or a orthopedics, which is more time. So here they are. They can earn. They're getting contracts, and you can tell their earning potential is fantastic. But they have no money,
Right.
or all their money's invested. Maybe it's all in their practice. Maybe through their education process, they've gotten married, had a couple of kids, and now all they do is pay tuition.
Right.
They just don't have a ton of cash.
Right.
So with that, because if they have honored their debts thus far and their scores are strong, we'll lend them 100% of a purchase, knowing that they're on the upswing, or that their their ability to pay, that risk is lowered by proven financial income, cash flow.
So they got a contract with, say, a hospital or with a practice, or they are the practice.
Well, we're
they're
not going to do it for somebody that owns a practice less than 3 years. They've got to
okay.
they either are joining a group
Okay, that has
that
a
has,
history. Okay.
or they have established success financially and the ability to manage.
Okay.
So either way, and it's regardless of how long they have been in practice. And so many lenders that even work in this space limit it to the first 7 years. So I can do, I do 100% lending for physicians that maybe are retired and they're wanting to, they've retired, they want to get rid of the McMansion, they want to downsize to a single story, but all their money's tied up in their house. Okay, fine, who cares? Or maybe they just don't want to turn loose of the cash that they have. Maybe they have acquired and invested well, but they don't want to pull money out of that's earning money. They'll use a physician's loan and buy, and that lets them come to the table with just closing costs, which the seller can help with as well. So physicians, MDs, DOs, doctors of osteopathy, and dentists qualify. Then we have a second tier lending. Oh, and that is with no mortgage insurance requirements.
Nice.
Very nice. Very nice. Saves them a bunch of money. Second tier, an additional design is a 7-year since their last educational experience. For other medical, podiatry, veterinarians, nurse anesthetists, nurse practitioners, chiropractors. So they have a ton of education beyond the basics, not just their 4-year terminal degree. They have gone above and beyond. They have great earning potential. Some of them make a couple $100,000 a year sometimes.
Yeah.
Or they're getting out of school with these contracts where their starting rate's $190,000. Okay.
Right.
We'll do 97% for them with no MI.
So now that, I will tell you, that's the first time I've heard of that, especially so with say chiropractors, because a lot of those,
if they're joining a group, they've got stability just in their employment contract. So we look at the employment contract. We look at they still have to qualify with debt. They still have to qualify by credit. They can't have not paid anybody
Right.
the whole time they're in school. You know what I'm saying? Right. So all of that comes together, and that allows them to launch well.
That's pretty awesome, though.
It is.
97% with no MI. I mean,
no MI.
There's not a.
It doesn't exist anywhere else.
Another program like
so that's the difference. Before we went on air, you asked me, what is the difference? There's a lot of differences.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, he who has the gold makes the rules. So when you're doing VA, FHA, conventional conforming, USDA, THDA, all of which we do, we have to follow the government's rules.
Right.
It's their money.
Right.
What we've done is built an entire portfolio outside of those lending guidelines to stand in the gap, to serve people not otherwise served, where we see, look, they're a good risk, but they don't fit in the box. So it's customized lending. And because it's our own money and we service just about everything we write, we get to make those decisions in-house.
I like it.
And it serves people that are underserved. And that's the big thing. We'll take a risk on them in the beginning because if we can help them up front, a lot of times we can help them grow wealth, true wealth through real estate, through investments, help them with their trust, help them design and decide how to take care of their family, help them through their other investments as far as are they going to do diversifying other business models. All of that comes into play, but first we got to get them a place to sleep.
Right. Yeah. The stepping stone.
It's Maslow's triangle.
Yeah, the first stepping stone, which typically is the hardest, but so worth it once you're there. Things kind of just take off from that point.
And everybody's gunning for them, and so they, sometimes they hook on to who the first person they talk to. Not always the best option.
Right.
Because that's not their forte. Usually, in those educational experiences, there is no business acumen, there is no education, not acumen, but there's no investment education, there's no business management education, there is no credit or debt education. And they just they're the smart kid in the room. And since they can do this one thing, people expect them to be able to do everything.
Right.
But they've spent all their time pursuing their master skill.
Yeah.
Why would we expect them? And sadly, oftentimes we do expect them to know everything. That's not possible, and that's not setting them up fairly. Our goal is to come alongside and help sculpt them and be that advisor and be that consultant so that they can make educated decisions and educated moves.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and I've seen that firsthand. It's, well, I had this conversation recently with one of the Lady Vols, a basketball player.
Yes.
And we were just talking. I was like, so now you're basically somewhat famous, right? I mean, I know I'm changing gears a little bit, but same.
No,
But
I
I'm like,
have lent with NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. And let me tell you, bless their hearts, they have a bullseye on their back.
yeah, cause
Everybody's got it from them. Same thing for physicians, same thing for medical people.
well, and I asked him like, okay, so you're college level, you have NIL money coming through, like you're going to graduate not only with a degree but potential earning money outside of just what you can get with your education.
Right.
Has anybody ever once talked to you about why, how to buy real estate, what real estate, like what does
Are you even ready?
ready, like, and she was like, nah,
Exactly.
no, and I was like, wow, really, like that's, you know, all too often we hear it probably more with athletes
Yes.
because they do make really good money
Up front.
up front that end up in a financial hole later. And we've heard it with other like stars, actors, singers, and stuff like that too. Um,
Yeah.
but that same thing is also potentially possible with somebody like a physician who doesn't
Absolutely.
ever get the, that guidance, that help because
Pro sports, medical, dental, anybody that is a honed expert in their field that becomes a high earner
mhm,
is a target, unfortunately. And sadly, if you misstep out of the gate, you misstep onto the wrong path.
yeah,
So our goal is always, and that's why we lend to residents, fresh out of medical school, doesn't know anything, making $52,000 a year. Let us help you start off on the right path. Don't go sign a note on a Tesla.
right,
Let's start so that you have a trajectory that's positive. Nothing's better than at the end of the day when your body has given out to be okay.
right, right. Well, and that, that same message, that's kind of what I would like to relay to, some of these young, athletes and whatnot too.
Yeah,
Is
NIL's great, except it
not,
just gives them money and no education.
yeah, you buy. I, I'll tell on myself because I can tell you a financial story about myself that it was a lesson learned. Um, I at one point uh, got a little bit of inheritance money. My grandfather had passed. He
I'm
he,
sorry.
he left me. This was a while back, and I did not necessarily have a good. I have way more financial education now than I ever had, and unfortunately, I got a lot of that education through the School of Hard Knocks. But I went down and I literally was like, I need new cars, so I bought two brand new vehicles, paid cash for them, and in my mind, I said, well, number one, I deserve it, right? Like I've earned it, and number two, which I hadn't. Now I go back and think about it. That
Your
money was given
granddad
to me.
earned it.
Earned it. I did not earn it. Um, and what happened was, so I bought basically equivalent to two pickup trucks. So I bought one 4-door truck and one SUV. Moved up here shortly after. I don't even remember. It wasn't that long ago. Gas prices went up to what, $5 a gallon. I mean, like it was, and so all of a sudden I moved and I didn't have the income coming in, but my expenses were getting higher and higher, and I had these great vehicles that now were just like sucking gas left and right. Um, Ended up trading those in again, not just bad step after bad step. Let's just say though, going out and buying a brand new vehicle with cash was not smart. I should
Never is. No
well,
matter if it's inherited money, earned money,
I,
don't buy new and don't, yeah.
if I could have gone back in time and I could have taken that money and said, "Hey, I'm either going to invest it in this, or, maybe then bought a couple of rentals or something." I could have bought something that actually made me money, and then
That's the goal.
I could take that and go out and maybe buy a car or something with it. It's that, but I was. I was totally in with that instant gratification moment at that time, so I understand it firsthand.
Eric, we all have to learn that.
Well, and I can imagine coming out of, you know,
You've eaten
many years.
ramen noodle and macaroni, and your kids have been in borrowed and hand me down clothes,
Hmm.
and you suddenly get your first contract, and the Honda Civic isn't working anymore, and they go out and they sign their name on $100,000.
Yeah. And that's even people who, okay, so even if you're not a physician, you're just a college student and you get your first job, we all feel that like, hey, I've earned it. I've worked this hard. I've gotten here. Um, you don't understand how much that vehicle payment can impact your ability to buy a home that you may.
A home will never keep you from buying a car, Eric,
It won't.
but a car can keep you from buying a home. And when you look, a car, no matter what it is a depreciating asset. Some lose 45% in the first 2 years.
Don't I know?
You're not going to have that situation if you buy right on a house, ever.
No, well,
45%? Not if you buy right.
well, in your house gives you a fixed payment. It gives you your fixed living expenses. Ideally, coming out of college, no matter where you're at, coming out of college, your first job, that's going to be the least amount of money ideally you're ever going to make.
And you know what's so cool is that we can take that first job, that new grad, college grad, take a copy of their 4-year transcript and their offer letter, and they can buy a house before day one.
That's pretty cool,
Talk about stepping off on the right
right?
foot. Same thing for that doctor. We can take their employment contract, we can take their degree, and help them buy their first house. And with the physician, what's really phenomenal, and when I say physician, I mean MD, DO, dentist, we can help them close in advance. They move in, get their family settled months before they start their new job.
That's pretty
As
awesome.
long as they qualify, again, that way they're not starting their new job in a dither, can't find the toothbrush because they're unpacking boxes. They get in, they get their kids in school, they get their house unpacked, and then they go to work.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal approach, as opposed to what my husband and I did, which was we had to buy a car to get to work. We had all these student loans.
Mm.
It's just what a much better entry
Right.
into home ownership, into asset building, into wealth building.
Definitely a smoother deal.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Talk about cutting some stress.
So what's this emerging professionals lending? Is that something along the lines of what we're already talking about?
Yes, it's everybody that didn't, not everybody, but it's those fields that are identified, that we've identified as being potentially high earners, but coming out light with employment contracts. That are that second tier lending,
Okay.
where it's like the chiropractor, the podiatrist, the veterinarian, a nurse anesthetist, nurse practitioner, that sort of
Really
thing.
just opens that up to a lot of people.
Tons. And we are sitting in the middle of education triangle.
Yeah, yeah,
This could help a lot of people.
that's awesome.
And we do it, I lend in multiple states. So everybody's like, oh, well, we didn't match here. That's okay. We can still take care of you.
Right, right. So it's a good intro. Get it started.
We can follow you wherever you move
Move.
because you know what? Once you've lived in East Tennessee, you're coming back.
Right.
It's just a matter of when.
Fair. All right, awesome. So I want to change gears a little
Sure.
bit because we've talked a lot about lending. Obviously, that's your specialty.
That's what I do for money. That's what
what
I do for a living.
But now let's talk
And
about.
I love it.
Let's talk about what I think not only makes you special, but makes East Tennessee special is some of these nonprofits that you support with your time, money, and energy. Um, let's just start with Child Help because if you don't know what Child Help is, this would be a great introduction. Um, y- I'll let you maybe tell everybody quickly what Child Help is if we can.
I'd love to.
Okay, let's go.
I can bring video. We can talk for hours. So I have been involved in child help, I think 8 or 9 years. So before I went into lending, I was in medical sales. And before that, I was a psychiatric social worker for children.
Okay.
For children in psychiatric care is what I should have said. So, and that was in the early 90s before Child Help came to Knoxville. And I saw the impact they had when they came to Knoxville on the experience of the child as well as the success of the legal system. So when a child is suspected of abuse or says something to somebody,
Yeah.
in the old system, they would maybe tell their teacher at school.
Yeah.
Teacher tells the principal interviews the child, principal calls the police officer comes out, police officer interviews the child. Oh my gosh. Then the police officer calls the Department of Children's Services or Protective Services, and then they come and interview the child. Then they get taken to that person's office. They may be interviewed by a second person. Then it goes to they may need medical care or medical intervention, and they go to the hospital and they talk to the ER, and then they talk to the nurse, and then they talk to the doctor, and then the police come back in there, and then the social worker from the hospital. Do you see what's happening?
Yeah.
And that kid is re-victimized by the system that the adults have created.
Yeah. They have to keep reliving the story every time they
Every
talk to somebody.
single time. And what we realized and what we saw happen repeatedly is at some point in that multi-stop process, the kid just goes, forget it. I'll just go back home, no problem. I lied. It's called recanting. So then we've got a kid going back to a horrible situation, knowing they are.
Maybe even worse.
Oftentimes worse because now their perpetrator knows that they told. They are unsafe. But your hands are tied because the kid recanted. The child. Child Help comes to town. Whole new world opens up. Started by Sarah O'Mara and Yvonne Fedderson under the request of President and Mrs. Reagan. They created and took on child abuse in our country to help change the laws, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 sites in our country that provide residential care, and then here we are sitting in Knoxville, because the state of Tennessee doesn't allow for residential care over a certain number. We don't do residential care in Knoxville. We have some amazing programs through Child Help that serve our East Tennessee area, changing and protecting the lives of children. Fast forward 25 years. Today, massively involved in child protective service legislation, massively. We also, and when I say we, I really mean them, it's the frontline people that are making miracles happen.
Right.
They provide prevention care, prevention education in preschools. They're trying to get in all the schools. If the schools will let them in, they'll go teach the children.
Yeah.
It's called Speak Up, Be Safe. How to tell, how to stay safe, what to do, because kids don't know.
Right.
They think that's normal. And worse, they tell a friend, and that kid that's their friend doesn't know what to do. Now they're being educated on what to do. There is a child advocacy center. This is life-altering. Remember, I talked about the process before child help in our area. Mm-hmm. The process now is a child's identified as having been at risk or having experienced something. There is a specially trained interviewer. That child can tell one time. Their offices are set up with the mirrored glass that's one way. On the other side of the glass could be the DA, DCS, the district attorney. I'm using acronyms. The district attorney's representative, the Department of Children's Services representative, law enforcement. And you've got a trained therapist wearing a wire, talking with the child at the child's pace in a way that is admissible in court. So the DA gets that, and that kid, and they go. Because the legal system, as we all know, is not the fastest sometimes. The difference between an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old on the stand is night and day. You put a 12-year-old on the stand and in front of a prosecuting attorney that's trying to defend the perpetrator, and I say prosecuting because that's really what they're doing. They're trying to break down the child. They say things that are horrendous, like, you asked for it. Didn't you want this?
Yeah.
Haven't you been caught in lies before? That kind of thing. The kid is traumatized. But you take an 8-year-old on film showing you on an anatomically correct doll exactly what happened in a child-sensitive environment. That film says it all. And luckily, or not luckily, by design, Child Help also has the ability to do medical exams. They have physicians that come in to collect evidence in a child-friendly, as non-traumatizing as. And from the very beginning, they're told, you're not broken. You're not bad. This is not your fault. This was a grown-up decision pushed on you. You're going to be okay, and you're not broken, and you are normal, because that's all they want to know.
It's a very different scenario.
Yeah. Therapy and healing begins immediately. And what that does is that equips the DA and her representative. Sharm Allen in our area is a saint in heels. She has spent her entire career prosecuting the abuse of children, and she is fantastic at it. And her prosecution rate went through the roof with Child Help coming on the scene and doing these forensic interviews and collecting it in a non-traumatizing manner so that the kid can speak freely. beyond that, healing begins immediately. And Child Help at the CAC, the Child Advocacy Center, begins to provide trauma-informed therapy, complementary to victims who have sustained abuse, regardless of income, until they reach the age of majority. And if the child has to go to court, they prep the child for court. They go with the child for court. They are the safe place. They educate the parents, if it's a non-parent offender, on how to help their child. It's amazing the work they do. And it is vital to it not continuing.
I was going to say, hearing the way it was before, you almost foster that generational continuation
Yes.
of a problem.
Yes.
Where in this situation,
Yes.
the current day deal with Child Help, you're fostering healing and growth
From day one.
and letting somebody know that, like, this is not, number one, it's not okay. You're okay though, like that wasn't
And
your
you're not broken.
You're not broken. It wasn't your fault.
And you can live a perfectly normal life. We're going to help you get there.
Yeah.
Another program that they have that is so special is their foster care program. They do foster care differently. And that's not to say that foster care is perfect, but when it's done from a state perspective, it's done to the minimum standards to be able to, because they have so many.
Right.
Our goal is to fulfill a child's potential and to help them achieve permanency that benefits them. So it may not be return to home, or it may be return to home. If it is, we're going to work with that parent.
Yeah.
Intensely. If it's not, we're going to help them find adoption. And sometimes that's with our families, the people that love them.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we do everything we can, when therapeutically appropriate, to keep sibling groups together.
That's cool.
It's very cool. We don't want a child to lose everything to be safe. And their healing is expedited.
So Child Help obviously is not a small organization.
No. And we lead the country. The other cool thing, just to continue to brag on them, there are two other things that are amazing. There's a child abuse hotline. Guess who does that?
Child Help?
Yep. Nationwide. And locally, we have led the legislative initiative with our state government to try and avoid state's custody. For some children, other family members step forward and are appropriate, but maybe they need a little bit of help. Mm-hmm. They certainly need training, but they may need a little help to make it work. Maybe it's clothing, maybe it's a bedroom, maybe it's a bed, maybe it's something that makes that then this kid doesn't go to strangers, they go to family who are committed to their recovery and keeping them safe. So again, they're not losing everything.
Right.
And so we have started and designed the relative care program that's being put in place in Tennessee to stave off a custodial care situation and to try and amend that living scenario for that child to maintain their normalcy and their identity. Because when a child goes into state's custody, they lose their friends, they lose their school, they lose their family sometimes, they lose their identity, and all they're left with is their brokenness.
Well, not to mention
that someone else has done to them.
I can't imagine how scary that might feel too.
Horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific.
So obviously an amazing organization.
Yes. Looking for donors and ongoing monthly contributors as well as one-time givers. and volunteers. So you can go to childhelp.org, go down to Tennessee, and be able to donate or to raise your hand and say, I want more information. I'd love to talk to somebody. We have a group called Child Helpers. They do everything from planting flowers in front of the therapy center to painting the stairwell to hanging and playing with the kids before and after their forensic interview, coming alongside. We have some that are certified to bring their therapy dogs in to hang with the kids. Maybe they're shopping for Christmas presents. Maybe they're shopping for school clothes. Maybe they're throwing a birthday party. There's all kinds of things that need to be done that if you're not worried about being paid, there's plenty of work for you to do.
So plenty of, I mean, just like any nonprofit, they're the two things that they typically need that I have found
Money
is
and bodies, baby.
money and bodies. But what a great organization to get involved with,
Yes.
where you're impacting the lives of children.
And we either take care of them on the front end or we see them oftentimes in prison.
Yeah.
If you do a study on the prison population, we're talking numbers of like 70%.
Victims of child
Have been victimized, were in foster care, and just got out with no resources.
So,
And our goal is to change that story. We want to pour into them and help them heal.
well, yeah, and what an amazing way to impact our community for many years to come.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. All right, so this other organization, not near as I don't think it's near as old,
No,
and has nothing. Well, it doesn't. I shouldn't say nothing to do with children, but it's not necessarily focused toward children.
nope.
But care cuts.
Yes.
I know this has become definitely this organization has grown a lot and has made a big impact. I'll be honest
Yes.
with you. I know quite a bit about Child Help because we've been involved in Child Help. I love that organization. I actually don't know a whole lot about care cuts.
I'll tell you anything you want.
Yeah, well, I know this is one that you're also deeply involved in.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Passionate.
What is care cuts? What do they do?
Care Cuts. Care Cuts is an organization I helped start with my hairdresser, her name is Marty Baker. Marty Baker is the founder. It's her brainchild. The rest of us just came alongside to help it happen. She was feeding under the bridge. And there are organizations that do that. So the way that goes down is they come in, they set up tables, they feed, they scream a sermon at you, they give you a set of clothes, and then they're gone in an hour and a half. Vital. People are kept alive with that.
Mm-hmm.
But Marty wanted to do more. She absolutely wanted to do more. The group that's under the bridge was founded by Maxine Rains, who is a legend in Knoxville. She has a book. She has since passed, but she is an amazing, incredible woman who changed the face of how we interact with homelessness and people experiencing homelessness in Knoxville and in our surrounding area. So Marty wanted to do more. She was a hairdresser. Bless her heart. She said, I barely graduated high school, but I want to do more. She's been a barber for 42 years.
Okay.
And she said, I want to give them their dignity back. I want to cut their hair. I want to make them feel, I want to give them their self-esteem back. Well, that was a noble, noble pursuit. And so she said, will you help me? Well, if anybody asks you a question while they're cutting your hair, those scissors are sharp.
Yeah.
You have one answer, and the answer is, of course I will.
Right.
So we started in April of 2016,
Wow.
and our first day, we served 65 people. We've learned a lot since then. We set up a makeshift salon. We did hair color. We did haircuts. We did manicures. You know what we learned? They need food.
Yeah.
Hello. We didn't think about that. So next month, we brought lunch or we brought breakfast. And then we realized, well, maybe we need to feed them more than once. So then we brought lunch. And it just grew from that. And now it is expanded. Care Cuts stands in the gap for those experiencing homelessness. There are great programs out there. There's VMC, there's CARM, there's Salvation Army, there's AMVETS, but they all have criteria to qualify to receive services. You have to be good enough. You have to self-identify. Homelessness is a three-legged stool. Lack of affordable housing, which you and I know
Right.
intimately, but also mental health and addiction. And addiction is simply the self-treatment of mental health.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are using and abusing drugs to get away from what's going on in their head or what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
About, oh golly, I want to say a couple of months ago there was an article released about our local situation. We have approximately, and this is a transient population that doesn't really, they're hard to count, so we go on those numbers. We have about 3,000 homeless people in Knoxville.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, baby. 15% roughly are veterans. 750 to 800 are ages 18 to 24, experiencing homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
We got more than we can say grace over, and you got to be able to qualify to get in those other programs.
Yeah.
At Care Cuts, you just have to self-identify as needing help. Maybe you've just gotten out of jail. Maybe you've just gotten out of prison. Maybe you've been released at midnight on the courthouse steps in downtown Knoxville with no money and no ID. What are you going to do? You got to find food. You got to find shelter. You got to find a source of income.
Yeah.
What does that lend to? Crime.
Yeah.
So we can either help and lift them up and mentor them towards productive participation in our community, or we can feed the penal system. We choose to not feed the penal system for recidivism, recurring offenses, as much as we can. Now, do we help everybody? Nope, can't fix them all.
Right.
But have you ever walked down the beach and you've seen the starfish and you pick them up and you throw them back in the ocean? You can't save every starfish, but you could change the life of one by picking it up and throwing it back in the ocean.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do. And we use the haircut or the grooming services, which all we do anymore is a haircut, as the carrot to get people to come to us. So what do we do now? Well, they can get a shower. They can get clean clothes. People experiencing homelessness can only have with them what they can carry. So the chances of them having multiple sets of clean clothing are almost non-existent.
Right. Makes sense.
And in some programs, you only get a new fresh set of clothes every 90 days, some every 30 days. Ours just come because they throw the other ones away because they wear them until they get another set of clothing. Have you ever thought about wearing underwear for 7, 10,
No.
30, 90 days? They do. They do. And so we don't want them putting them back on. We hot shower, clean clothes. If they wanted a haircut, food. And we try and hook them up and help them integrate into resources that already exist in our community. There is no duplication. But what we have found is that newcomers, people right out of jail, people newly homeless, or the working poor need help.
Right.
And we try and be that safety net. We don't require that they have a homeless card. Other groups may and do. You just have to show up and say, I'm hungry or I need help. And we help them. We do everything we can to help them. And in that process, we learn their story. We find out, how'd you get here?
Right.
Everybody has a story. Nobody chooses to be unsheltered. Nobody chooses to be addicted. Nobody chooses to be mentally ill, and nobody chooses to sleep under the bridge. They are malnourished. They are scared, and they are in straight survival mode. And people who are fighting for every bite will do anything to not die. So our goal is to lean in and to understand where they are and to help them make a move out of their situation towards safety, towards housing, towards self-sufficiency, towards employment. We have people that go to work right from meeting us. We'll call. We have employers that come needing people. We help equip them and get them. They have gotten over 600 people off the street.
That's crazy.
In housing, in treatment, living their best life, functioning at their highest level possible, whatever that is.
Right.
We don't have a program that says you have to be and do X, Y, Z. You just have to do the best you can. And if you need supportive services, we help you link to that so that you can get off the street.
So that's I mean, what a unique way of getting involved in that scenario. I mean, oftentimes you see somebody maybe on the street and you think, well, I know Carm is just down the road. But also understand that I do know that there is a barrier, and some people,
Yes.
especially ones with that may be experiencing some sort of mental illness, they're not
can't do it.
Yeah, they're not comfortable with those scenarios. So this creates Care Cuts creates like a almost like a conduit. It creates
Yes.
a way. You mentioned carrot. You're giving them something that they're going to benefit from.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's low
barrier.
low barrier, low resistance.
No barrier.
Yeah. And then as you build, I mean, you're basically kind of building a relationship
Yes.
by finding out what this person, who this person is, what this person needs, and then the ability to connect them. I mean, that's powerful. The ability then to connect them with the resources. And I assume at that point, you've maybe built a little bit of trust. I mean,
That's the whole goal.
yeah.
That's
So,
the whole goal. And we're talking about a population. A lot of times, we may be the first non-assaultive touch they've had in decades. Non-assaultive touch. We've had people in the chair. You wash their hair, you start cutting it, they start crying. And they're like, I can't tell you the last time I've experienced interaction that didn't involve handcuffs or getting hit or getting raped or getting abused or getting whatever. It's hard not to cry with them.
yeah, I can imagine.
It's hard not to cry with them. And our whole goal is to give them hope, to give them faith, to give them strength, to give them dignity. Because if they begin to believe in who they can be, they start moving towards that. And what's so amazing about Care Cuts, Marty Baker, the volunteers, on any given day, we'll have 75 to 100 volunteers. So this is not an understaffed event. There's no federal or state funding. It's 100% donation.
Wow.
We now have one paid position and one part-time position. That's it.
Wow.
That's it. We're 8 years in.
How often does this happen?
So before COVID, we did once a month, because how often do you get a haircut?
Yeah, about once a month. Yeah.
About once a month. Well, hello. COVID happened. Guess what happened? Everybody shut down. All the social services that provided direct care, a lot of them shut down. What we were realizing is people that couldn't make it in these, or couldn't qualify or couldn't maintain in some of these other programs, or hadn't already been admitted, couldn't get in. Didn't have access to water. Didn't have access to restrooms. Didn't have access. What do those people do? They live in biohazards. They create biohazards.
Yeah.
It's a bad scene for them and for the city. So we went to every week, and we got in trouble for spray painting the lines 6 foot apart on the sidewalk. But you had to have a visual because I can't eyeball 6 feet. Can you?
No.
No. So we would let them in the gates 2 at a time, going to separates, getting food, getting clean water, washing their hands, and then they'd go out. And it was enough to keep them alive. And then when COVID lifted, a lot of people had closed down. A lot of businesses, a lot of donations. Oh my golly. And guess what happened? People lost their housing because they lost their job. People lost their housing because of X, Y, and Z. People lost their housing because of whatever. So we had an increase in homeless population and a decrease in resources. Oh, crap. So we went to every week because we had to.
Yeah.
And we let them shower. And then we realized we brought on medical care because they had no access to medical care because of COVID. And unless they were going to the ER, they weren't getting treatment. And we've got spider bites that they're killing people. We've got untreated sores. We've got untreated wounds. We have diabetics. Holy smokes, just the minimal wound care that we do by nurses that volunteer their own time
Right.
saves lives. And so from there, we realized this is a huge population and they need something more than once a week. While we're keeping them alive and helping them make a difference, how much more could we do if they had access more often? So now we're at 4 days a week.
Wow.
Hoping to go to 7. And guess what? On average, we serve up to 400 people on a Sunday. On a daily basis, we're serving up to 150 and 175. The need is so great. So if you want to help, not to be solicitous, but to be solicitous, CareCuts, 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 Knox, of course, KNOX.org. Donate, find out about volunteer opportunities. We need monthly donors, people that we can count on every month for $25.
Yeah.
We need one-time donors. We need willing hearts and willing hands to come and volunteer because it takes a lot of manpower. You might be serving food. You might be running the shower trailer. You might be just loving on people, being a personal shopper, pulling clothes for people. You might be running mail call.
Yeah.
Because to get off the streets, to get into housing, you have to have a state-issued ID. To get a state-issued ID, you have to have an address. To get an address, you have to have a state-issued ID. You have to have a birth certificate and a Social Security card. To get that, you got to have an address. Do you see how this goes?
Yeah.
Those aren't quick. And so we have started resource days. We bring the driver's license group to us. We bring remote area medical. We set up with employers. We set up with therapists. We set up with... Do you see how that works? And we bring and tell everybody. And just the more we do, the faster people stop experiencing homelessness.
So,
and the less crime we have.
What an amazing resource, opportunity. I mean, it's what I love about this area. Always have. Is it's not that we don't have common issues. Homelessness is a common issue all across the country.
You know, there's some communities that have solved for homelessness, that don't have homelessness. They take care of their people. That is my aspiration for our community. It's not a hand out, it's a hand up.
Well, and that's what I like about our community is the willingness to get in. I mean, here we had somebody who basically was a barber for a living who said, I want to make a difference. And then
And she did.
And
She did, and she does.
and then but brought all of these other people. Now there's this opportunity,
Yes.
and there are so many opportunities around here like that. That's why I like to talk about these on the show, because I hope that if you're listening to it, you've made it this far into it,
And thank you
yeah,
for listening.
that you that if this rings to you, if you're like, hey, I want to help children who have been, abused in some way, live a fruitful life, or if you want to help somebody who's experiencing homeless, which, by the way, Zan with VMC was the first person I ever heard say experiencing homelessness. Uh,
They are not homeless people.
they're
They
not
are
homeless
people experiencing
homeless,
homelessness.
and that rings so true when you say it that way, because we talked about earlier how if you haven't had a hard spot in your life, hold on, because we all experience them. To be honest with you, some experience them harder than others, and
Yes.
that's not a that's not saying that they're any less of a person. It's just that situation was different. And I'll be honest, when I said I went through my hard time, when I went through my hard time, I had people help me.
Amen.
And I will be forever grateful for their help.
The Bible teaches us we are our brother's keepers.
Yeah.
Now, do I believe in socialism? No. But I believe that God put us here to take care of one another and that we can win together as a community, because when good people come together, Eric, great things can happen.
See, I look at, okay, so I've had this thought for many years. I feel as if it would be nice to end homelessness altogether, but the act of this experiencing homelessness is going to continue. Like, people are going to continue to fall into that scenario.
How are we going to help them?
How are we going to help them? But we're called. I think that's the part. We don't want government to figure that out. We as people need to get our hands and our
And everybody has something to give.
everybody does.
Just when you think, I can't do anything, guess what?
There's definitely
I'm
something.
a banker. I have cut hair. I have made food. I have loved on people. I have leaned in because, sadly, we have this language that we all love called English, except it carries with it, by its very nature, prejudice. Homelessness is not a disability, it's a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes our use of language places people there forever and they have no hope. It's a situation and they can have hope because they don't have to be, nobody has to be there forever.
I think that's is powerful, and I think that's when deciding on a place to live, if you're like, hey, I want to find my region, my people, if you at all want to be surrounded by people who care for people, that's what I think Knoxville is. East Tennessee is. We're a community of people who care about people, and you can see that when you look at like the amount of involvement in nonprofits such as these. It's just amazing. I'm going to tell you, we've covered a lot.
I'll sit and talk with you forever, Eric.
I might even be able to make this a two-parter. I'm not sure, but and I would love to talk to you some more, about some other stuff. But
Happy to.
Honestly, I think we're at a good wrap-up spot. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
I
Thank
appreciate
you for the opportunity.
learning. Like I said, I've done a lot of deals, and I learned stuff today. So I know whoever listened to this is definitely learning some stuff. And I really appreciate not only what you've done with child help and care cuts, but what you've done even for our real estate community. To get some of these awards means you've poured into beyond even just the lending side of things.
Absolutely.
And a major affiliate for the Realtor Association, which is awesome.
This is how I support my family. I've got to give back, and I believe in education. And I believe when we work together, we can do great things. So collaboration is everything.
Yeah.
And I know the Knox Fox Real Estate Group to be an exemplary company. And I know the Board of Realtors to have their heart in the right place and to hold the standards high for our industry that we share.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I be involved?
Why not? Why not? I appreciate that. So with that, there will be links below wherever you're listening to this, watching this, reading it. There's going to be links to be able to connect with you.
I'll
Uh,
give you my cell.
go for
Call
it.
me, text me. I'll help anybody. I may not have the answer, but do know we'll take a swing at it and we'll try and get you to the right people. So my direct line is 865 607 1218. Whether you want to build a house or you want to help build our community, I want to talk to you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so there will be a link below as well, and we'll also link to these other organizations so you can check those out. Because I'm all about sharing what they're doing. I believe in supporting those that support others as well. You know, sometimes you're busy, and sometimes you can't maybe take off a day to go do something. But if you've got a little extra change in the pocketbook, you can go and support those who do have the ability to be there on the ground. And that's an awesome way to help too. So with that, I appreciate everybody. We're signing off today, and we'll catch you on the next one.